chat a little bit more about how things are going to shape up, we have with us Rajendra S Pawar, the chairman and co-founder at NIIT Group, joining in on the show right now. Mr. Pawar, great to have you on ET now. Just help us understand, now only the B2C business is listed on the bourses, right, or on the markets after the completion of the spin-off. What is the timeline and the intent now for the B2B business, that's NIIT Learning Solutions?
I guess the period is about 60 days, totally not in our control, but that's the process by which we expect the listing of NIIT Learning Systems to happen. The listed company, NIIT Limited, that of course continues, but that retains the part of the business which is to do with individual learners and the India market, for example.
In one of your recent conference calls, you stated that, growth outlook is expected to remain uncertain till the first half of this current fiscal, especially because of the slowdown in the industry spends. Tell me, how is the client confidence and client additions outlook looking like going forward? Because that really is the key concern, I'm sure not just for you, but for the entire industry.
So let's get a few things as a context to be right. One is that the sector will continue to grow. Nobody has a concern on that. I think this unexpected concern in the IT sector of changes in the environment and so on have got them to stall on their people addition in the last quarter. And that happened a bit unexpectedly. So what tends to happen in such situations is that activities like training get affected in the short term. But companies have to run, they have to exist, so it's a matter of time before it comes back. So the last quarter did appear unexpected because it's only in November, December, really speaking, and then more in January and February that most of the IT companies started talking about the fact that they were going to take a bit of a pause on adding people. And globally, in some of the very large companies, that they have been, reducing the headcount, and that is for different set of reasons as well. They expect more automation to happen in some of the tech companies. So net, I think the employment situation, the number of jobs, the nature of jobs, that will continue to grow. We don't see that as an issue, and we just feel that it'll settle in many ways. The clarity on coming back to job additions, and then of course the need to train. There's no question about that. That we've seen that happen in our 42 years at least 3 times significantly. So things even out, things pan out. And so for us, I think the decision we had taken regarding the demerger, and all of you reported it quite extensively, was in January 22. That's when we said it's the coming year, it'll start getting effective. And the whole legal process, the government process, which is an elaborate process, normally takes 18 months. I think we could complete that in 15 months. So that has gone well. And NIIT Limited remains a listed company, just that currently the share price reflects only the new NIIT Limited entity and does not factor in NIIT Learning Solutions, which is a large part of the business. That's the whole managed training services business for the international markets, which is much like the services business. It's learning outsourcing, really speaking. And it's focused for us for the Fortune 1000 companies. And that has gone well. That is going quite well. And we see a lot of headroom there. So that business is on a very solid track, very solid course, lots of headroom. And I think the focus they will get, the leadership team will get on focusing, and the CEO will get on focusing with a lot of, we created a lot of cash with the earlier transaction, as you know. So they're all set. The exciting changes are happening in NIIT Limited, where we are reworking a lot of the approaches and strategies. So first of all, this business gets its attention on the consumer, and we are going to broad base the areas in which talent is needed. So India is actually, one of the few countries where there's a lot of growth. And the areas that we are looking at are all sectors impacted by technology. So everything is becoming tech, whether it's agri-tech or commerce tech or health tech or fintech. So our talent preparation, as you know, in these last 40 years, and by the end of it, 80% of learners we get come for technology, IT. 15 odd percent come from banking, because the bank tech area we've been working for over a decade. And the rest is only about 5%.
I
So we are
wanted
going
to
to
also,
broad-base
Mr.
that.
Pawar, if I may come in, wanted to also understand a little bit more. I mean, since we're short on time, I just want to get in as many questions, because you have strong cash levels for both the businesses post the demerger. Any acquisitions, any particular segment that you'd zero in on?
So I think that's an ongoing process, and we always say it happens when it happens. We talk about it when it happens. So both companies are actively looking at things which will add to their capability. So in NIIT Limited, considering that our strategy now involves broad basing domains, so clearly that will be one of the focus areas where we look for. But we continue to look for interesting technologies that people have created, interesting framework that people have created. So it's not as much to do with new revenue or to add on to revenue. That's not a good idea to use money for. But newer spaces and newer technologies. These are the two areas where we have conversation going on. So that's going to be important as we go forward, and that both the companies will be looking at things, and one can expect, of course, many more of these to happen in the NIIT Limited area, because the domains are going to be wide.
And off late as well, the corporate demand for AI reskilling, that's gained a lot of interest. What kind of launches are planned? Are you getting those kind of queries as well?
So, see, the interesting thing about what's happening in AI, the work has been going on, but it's come into public knowledge with ChatGPT and so on, is that it is affecting some sections of work in any industry and every industry. And obviously, in some, the impact is bigger. So what it's throwing up is a need, first of all, for companies to figure out what to do with this new technology. So that opens training needs which are much more to aid decision making. Then in each sector, there's a different way to deal with domain. And AI is all about dealing with domain, with the knowledge in the domain. So we see that some domains will need more of AI, some will need less, some jobs will be affected to a larger extent, those which can be done, which were considered routine with a little bit of intelligence to be used. But the need for every sector to understand how to embrace AI, that I think is the generic need, which we are beginning to see, and some of our programs reflect it, but quite obviously there'll be more. The other thing is the way in which learning is delivered. I think this is going to undergo a change, and we have been working on it for a while now. And I think some of it becomes visible, some is not so visible, like content creation becomes a much faster process. And the same number of people you can have much higher productivity and therefore output on content generation. The other thing the world has been pursuing, which will get accelerated, is learning in a class of one. So what we call as personalization. So since a lot more information about the learners is available, then you use technology to be more focused on an individual to provide, let's say, much more specific mentoring. So qualitatively, there's a difference in how learning will happen. And quite clearly, a lot of it happens under the hood. So we don't need to talk about that, the productivity in content development. But some of it starts becoming visible to our learners, that they feel that they're getting much more attention, much more focused attention. So the rate at which concrete talent changes can happen accelerates. And therefore, training becomes more impactful, more valuable. So we've embraced that a bit, and it's going to be playing out much more as we go forward.
Right. The other thing I also wanted to talk about, Mr. Pawar, was your revenue growth guidance, which stands at about almost 10%. Will you be sticking to these guidance figures and even the GL business at 20% for FY24? And can we expect certain downticking looking at the current demand setup?
Well, see, last year, as you know, we've grown very well in the individual business as well. We've grown very well. It's only in the last quarter that this unexpected blip happened. We were running at almost 90 crores. A quarter came down to 60 unexpectedly, but it's not gone away. It comes back in a period of time. And we expect that this coming quarter we are in through is again, things are beginning to get better. But second half, as we've said, we expect that to come back, because after all, companies have to carry on to their business. They have to learn new things. And for us, these changes also represent an opportunity for more skilling to be done for everybody in the job. So the second half looks good. And but as I said, the corporate learning business, which is now the learning systems, NIIT learning systems, their track is far steadier. They are on a global frame. They're working with the global 1,000 companies. Those people continue to invest in learning. And there we've been talking about 20% growth, 20% EBITDA margin. That is a track which we are pursuing. In the learning business, smaller base, so we expect that going forward, the growth percentages will be higher. And of course, margin will become stronger as we go, as we come through in the second half of this year. So, and then going forward, of course, we expect a lot more growth as we broad base the domains and go into newer areas. So if you've probably grown up learning that NIIT's mission is to bring people and computers together. We've done that for 40 years. We are reworking that to say that we want to be talent builders to the nation. So the new areas which are emerging, consider new manufacturing or supply chain or engineering R&D, these are the areas where the talent needs are becoming voluminous enough for us to engage in the market. And so that broad basing, I think, is going to be the focus that you will see of the company going forward. And that, of course, will generate growth in additional dimensions.
Mr. Pawar, always a pleasure. I must say that for Aisha and me, every time we interact with the management of NIT, we start remembering our school and college days.
Who hasn't done an NIIT course? It's the biggest brand recall.
Let me be candid. I think the previous few years, we were less engaged with the college community compared to, let's say, till about 10 years ago. Right? Now we're going to re-engage, but not just for IT. I think the point I'm making is that now most sectors of technology have a tech angle to it. Commerce tech, fintech, van tech. These are the areas where we will go back to the youngsters in college and say, doesn't matter what profession we are looking at. There's a role of information, there's a role of logic and reasoning, and there's a role of your domain. So you marry these two together, and hopefully, just like in your school and college days, had many friends doing it, some of you doing it as well. We are aiming to get back to that situation in the consumer space. That's our intent.
Good luck, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Avan. Thank you, Aisha. Thank you.